We are live once again here on the Active Towns channel with Duzer.
Hello.
Ryan Van Duzer, welcome back.
Whoop, whoop. Merry Christmas.
We are back to our annual get together where we take the time to act a little silly and reflect on the year and
Yeah.
celebrate the holidays. I can't do these
Yeah,
glasses.
you
I
keep
can't
them on
rock
the whole
those.
time.
Very
It's an
nice to
honor
see
to
you,
be
my.
back. It wouldn't
Yeah,
be
yeah.
Christmas without this YouTube live.
That's right. This is a YouTube live, and we're having fun. And thank you very much, Allocated Brain. He's letting me know that the audio is good this time, versus the
Yay.
the live stream that I did just a couple days ago, where no bueno, it was not good.
That's all right.
But hey, Brian, I have a feeling that a few people are going to tune in today who don't know who the heck you are. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you to introduce yourself. Who is Ryan Van Duzer?
Well, I'm one of Santa's elves. I live at the North Pole. I help build toys out of wood. I don't like plastic. I like natural materials. And yeah, right now it's pretty dark up here. This light you're seeing out of the windows is just fake light. It's dark in the North Pole.
It's.
Oh, did you want me to be serious
I
or in
wanted you to be
character?
serious for once in
Oh,
your life.
for once. Sorry. My name is Ryan. I live in Boulder, Colorado. I have been a bike rider all my life, not a racer, but a rider and an advocate. I've never had a car in my life. I ride my bike everywhere I go, to go grocery shopping, to go to work, to go on dates, whatever it is. I believe in the power of bicycles and pedestrian transportation. I take the bus when it's too snowy. And on my YouTube channel, I document long adventures around the world in hopes of inspiring people to get off their couches and challenge themselves. Was that better?
That was better, much better. You get an A
Much
plus
better.
on that. You get an A plus on
Yay.
that.
Thank
And
you.
and this is your website. So this is the landing page to your website. And you and I have known each other for years. I first documented you and your story on a bicycle. I rented
Yeah,
I checked out one of the B-cycle bikes, and we went for a little ride out on the Foothills Trail right behind your house,
you sure
and did a
did.
little interview. I don't know that I've ever released that interview on YouTube because it
Ooh,
used to be housed out on my
Vimeo.
Vimeo channel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you've got a long history of producing video content, even longer than your YouTube career. Talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that, because it dates back to, as I'm looking at here, way back to the early 2000s.
Maybe even the late 1900s. Yeah, I have been a video storyteller for a long time, and it's been
Yeah.
my preferred method of storytelling. Even in high school, if I could get away with doing an alternate project instead of writing a 5-paragraph essay, I could be a little bit more creative. I would borrow somebody's video camera. And that's when I got my start in just figuring it all out with shooting and editing. And then I went to college and got a degree in broadcast journalism, but I didn't want to be like a local news anchor. I did an internship at 9 News in Denver, and it was exciting to be in a big TV studio. But I realized that that's not the type of storytelling that I wanted to do. Local news, for me personally, makes me sad. It's kind of depressing. They focus on a lot of the bad stuff going on. There's a slogan where they say, if it bleeds, it leads. And that's not my style. I wanted to create happy news, inspirational news, and hopefully create content that inspires viewers to get out and challenge themselves in some way, shape, or form. So I've been running around with a video camera for a long time. My first official job, which wasn't even all that official because I wasn't getting paid, was on a local public access TV channel here in Boulder. So it was very much like Wayne's World. And I created a show called Out There. And the whole slogan was, get out there, get off your couch and get out there. And I would run around Boulder with my little Sony Handycam. This is before digital. This is when the cameras recorded to a little tape, a DV tape. I would run around Boulder and film mini adventures and highlight all the cool stuff to do in this area. And
Yeah.
that's how it all got started. And from there, YouTube became a thing. And I started putting videos on YouTube, started working for the local newspaper here. Then I started doing some work for the Travel Channel. And it led me on a long career of the TV entertainment industry, which was fun, but also at the same time, not fun.
Right.
And now I'm just doing YouTube, and it's a dream come true. I absolutely love being able to share stories on YouTube. I feel like I get to share a piece of my heart and my soul. I get to tell stories in the way that I want to tell them. I don't have 5 editors between me and when it hits the air, like was the case with the TV networks and Travel Channel. So if I feel like something's important and I want to tell a story about it, I can do that.
Yeah.
And it's great. And then another thing about YouTube is I can interact with my viewers. People can send me emails or comments and questions, and we can have discussions. And so I've been able to build a pretty strong community of people who just want to get outside and love life a little more.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of which, and also do some live streams like we're doing here today. And in fact, Matt Rhodes has a little comment. He says, Duzer does it. Frijoles and bicis.
Frijoles en bicis mejor. Felicidades para todos mis amigos. I love it.
And yeah, it's really, really cool. And Allocated Brain, he chimes in and said he does a college radio. So yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, very, very, very cool. And yes, as you can tell, folks, we are live. This is really, truly live. People are like, sometimes they're like, is this a premiere or is this live stream? No, this is really super fun. It's a super live. And
I'm
with that being,
I'm sitting here in my chair in Boulder, looking at the beautiful mountains out the window.
Yeah, exactly. And oh gosh, you know what? I need to change my view a little bit here. Look at that.
Oh, you do? Oh, yeah.
Other hat in view. There we go. You know, one of the things that I wanted to always like doing on this particular live stream that we do is, you know, look back to the year and celebrate some of the cool things that have happened throughout the year. You know, what were some of the highlights, you know, for you from the YouTube perspective of what happened you know, this year? And I'm going to help you. I'm going to put us back over to your YouTube channel and we can actually scroll down.
Oh, I know. So at the very beginning of last year, I flew down to Oaxaca, Mexico and met up with the famous John and Mira, the Wonder Dog.
Yep.
And we did a beautiful bike ride loop in Oaxaca. And Oaxaca is a beautiful area of Mexico. It's very indigenous. People have probably heard of the food down there being very good. Mole is from Oaxaca, that special sauce that they put on different things. Yeah, mole is from Oaxaca. And it's just a fascinating place. And another bonus, it doesn't have a lot of the narco activity like some other areas of Mexico. So it's pretty safe. And friendly. And so John and I and Mira rode our bikes around for a whole week, and it was like a dream come true. It was so beautiful. I love Mexico. I speak Spanish. I lived in Honduras for 2 years, so I feel very comfortable there.
Yeah.
And the people are just so kind and gentle and generous. And we were invited into people's homes and they fed us different meals. And here's some images right here. Oh, this is a little throwback to Baja. I also love Baja. But Oaxaca is a special place, and I'd like to go back there more and more. Yeah, because it's just
because this is you're telling the story of how the two of you got connected, and so that's
so I met John and Mira in 2020, right before the pandemic in January, and I was in Baja riding my bike in the middle of nowhere, and just happened upon John and Mira. They were also on a bike packing trip.
Yeah.
And John came up to me because he recognized me from my videos. And he's like, hey, Ryan, how's it going? And we just started talking. And of course, I was drawn to Mira as well. Yeah. And from there, we've done all sorts of fun adventures together.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to pull up a comment, another comment here. And by the way, folks, love the comments. Keep them coming, as well as if you have any questions for either of us, please don't hesitate to let us know. And here is this little comment here. So
that's my friend Renee. Hello, Renee. I got out there off the couch when I was depressed. Thanks to Ryan. Gracias, hermano. That's my friend Renee. I have met him in real life now at Ragbri. And
Right.
he's a great guy. I actually gave him one of my priority 600s. So he's
Oh
riding a
yeah.
priority bike as well. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and that's one of the cool things that you get to experience, and I do at a much smaller level, is you get feedback from people that say, "Hey, I've watched your content, and it's helped change my perspective. Sometimes it positively influences their life." That's
Yeah.
got to be so cool when you hear that, right?
It really is amazing, and it's always humbling. I started this YouTube adventure, you know this story from your own journey, where you make a lot of videos and you put a ton of effort into them and not many people watch them.
Yeah.
And the growth is very slow and you wonder if it's ever going to catch on. And I've had many moments of my YouTube career where I'm like, okay, I don't really make much money. And I guess that's okay. I can make money other ways. But how I get paid is getting emails from people saying, hey, your videos have inspired me. They've inspired me to get off my couch. I ride my bike more. I've lost weight, or I'm more connected with my family. I ride my bike to work now or to school. Like those emails, I call my emotional paycheck, because
Right.
that's what makes me feel good. That's the overarching mission of what I do, is I want to inspire people to just get outside more often and realize how easy it can be. I know it seems intimidating. You think you need to have all the right gear and the right body type, but really it's all about just getting out there and going for it on whatever size adventure works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, thanks for checking in, Philip. We appreciate that. Fantastic. Asheville, and
Asheville's a great place to ride bikes. I love
it
Asheville.
it is indeed, and I finally got to visit Asheville for the very first time this year. I didn't produce too much content while I was in Asheville because I was literally only there for a couple of hours before jumping on a plane to
Oh, wow.
fly back home. It was actually a wonderful little opportunity for me to spend about a week with my sister up in a cabin up in the North Carolina mountains. I didn't even know much about the North Carolina mountains, but it was an
Yeah.
actual ski resort, which so it was kind of
Cool.
cool. We got to hang out there. But
Fun.
so going back to your channel, and I'm looking at this, and I'm kind of realizing that I've followed you with this journey over these years because I remember when you didn't have this many subscribers, and when I say this many, I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, it didn't seem that long ago that when I was like saying, oh yeah, Ryan's at like 50,000, Ryan's at, oh
Yeah.
wait a minute, you're at like 200,000,
Getting
almost,
close.
getting close, 189,000 subscribers. And on YouTube, there's subscribers are one thing. What really matters is you're reaching people and reaching
Mhm.
people and changing and influencing and having a positive impact on their life. But subscribers is a nice proxy of knowing that people, it's resonating with people, and they feel strong enough that they quote unquote hit the like button and they hit the subscribe button, and hopefully they come back on a regular basis. Hitting that 100,000 mark is one of those milestones,
Mhm.
and I know it's significant, for you too. Talk about that journey of, like, because you mentioned it in a little bit of when you're first putting it out there and you're first producing content. Hardly anybody seems to be watching it.
Mhm.
My biggest fan, of course, is my mom, so I know
Yeah.
I've at least got one fan.
Yep, me
But
too. My
yeah, talk
mom is
about
number
that.
one.
Yeah, number one. Talk about that journey of getting that number two fan, and then getting up to 100,000, and then, and I know that you have a future of hitting that million fan mark at some
Yeah,
point.
hopefully. That's I've got 800,000 to go. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, the journey, it's been a beautiful journey. I worked in the TV world for about 10 years, chasing the dream of being like a TV host for Travel Channel. I was on the Discovery Channel on a survival show. So I had some success in the TV world, but it was mainly endlessly frustrating, where you're sitting by the phone waiting for a casting director to call or getting a show to get a green light. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, I guess, going to LA and trying to be an actor, where you're going to auditions all the time and you're just like hoping that one lands. And that's the world that I was in for a long time. And it was fun when it worked, but not so fun when it didn't work. And it didn't work a lot. So I really had to evaluate what I wanted to do with my life when I was about 36 years old. I'm 44 now. And I knew that I wanted to be a storyteller. I knew that I wanted to create content. I've always felt like I was good at that, or good enough at that at least. And I was like, okay, YouTube seems to be becoming a more legitimate outlet for storytelling. I want to try to build up a channel to the point where I can make a living doing this. But more importantly, telling the stories that I really believe bring value to the world. So I started in 2016 creating weekly videos. And the journey for the first couple of years was slow. My growth was slow. Nothing really hit in the viral sense at all. You know, it was my mom and my brother and some of their friends, and every video would get a few more views that I released because their friends told some friends, but the growth was very slow, I would say, until the pandemic. And during the pandemic, people were at home, they were looking for content to watch, but there was also a sales and bicycles all over the world, a bicycle boom, because everybody wanted to get outside and socially
Right.
distance safely. So people all over the world are buying bikes, and then they go to YouTube to look for content about bikes, and ta-da, they found my channel. And that's really when things changed for me. You know, it's not
Yeah.
like I have a huge channel now. You know, 189,000 is a lot, but compared to a big YouTube channel, it's not that big, but it's bigger than I ever thought it would be. And I'm really grateful for it and all my viewers. And now I can say that I make a living being a YouTuber, doing what I love doing and connecting with people all over the world.
Yeah. And you've positively impacted my trajectory as well from a career perspective, because I was like producing content and interviewing people and traveling all over the place, but didn't really know what to do with the content. I was,
Mhm.
documenting stories, putting them out on Vimeo. Nobody was seeing them, and you were just like, yeah, YouTube is. You were telling me about the story of,
Mhm.
I'm going to start focusing in on YouTube. And I started watching that and realized, yeah, I mean, this is kind of cool.
Mhm.
And, had the opportunity to spend some time with Clarence Eckerson Jr. with Street Films, who you know. And, he's also making that shift of putting more content on YouTube versus on Vimeo. And I'm like, yeah, maybe this is where we need to be. And part of that is that community, that sense of community that you were talking about here. And we've got Harry who's chiming in here, and he's like, "Hello, peoples," and
Hello,
he's
Harry. He is
exactly.
one of my favorite viewers. He comments on almost every single video. So thank you, Harry, for being so involved in my channel. You are awesome.
And exactly that. He wanted to let you know I'm here.
Yeah, I love it.
but but one of the things that you mentioned right there in passing was that it's important to like cover stories that touch your heart and
Mhm.
move you, and sometimes you'll even dive into politics, not often but sometimes,
Yeah.
especially if you think it's something that's important. But this
Yep.
was another moving story, and an important story. This is Cycling Without Age, and
Yeah.
Boulder has a chapter of Cycling Without Age. I've had the opportunity, the honor to interview the founder of the Cycling Without Age from Copenhagen in Denmark, and there's chapters down in Denver, the Lakewood area. And so that's what I love about your channel too, is that yes, you've got the adventure and you've got the fun, but every once in a while you'll throw like,
Mhm.
just this heartstring, pulling message of, profiling something like this. Talk a
Mhm.
little bit about Cycling Without Age and why you were so moved to want to document them.
So it's a worldwide organization that gets older people out on bikes so they can feel the joy of the wind blowing through their hair and seeing nature and hearing the birds chirp in the trees above. And it was started by a man in Denmark, and now it's all over the place. Boulder has a chapter, and I was contacted by the chapter leader, and he's like, "Hey, can you come check out what we're doing?" And I said, "Of course." So here in Boulder, they have a couple different places where they go and pick up elderly folks and take them out on bike rides throughout the year and show them, a piece of Boulder that they don't get to really experience anymore without the help of somebody riding them around on what's called a trishaw. So there they are riding down the paths in Boulder, and they're pointing things out and looking at birds. And usually all the pilots sit there and chat with them for a while about some history or whatever they're experiencing. And it's just more fun. As we know, it's more fun doing this than driving in a car. In a
Yeah.
car, you're enclosed, there's windows, you can't see as much. Maybe you're listening to music, you're not paying attention. But when you're on a bike, you're in the present moment. And it brings these people back to maybe a time of childhood when they were first learning how to ride their bikes and the excitement of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's truly a special program, and especially for people who were used to getting out on a bike, or were used to getting out and living an active lifestyle, and then suddenly it's been taken away for one reason or another. And one of the things that they'll exclaim and they'll comment is like, "Oh, it's so wonderful to feel the breeze on my face again." And you talk a little bit about that, when you're out on the bike, is that you get to feel the elements.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Philip had a comment here, about his great uncle was out riding until he was 96, and then even his grandfather was still riding up until 96 until he passed away, which is wonderful if we are able to have that level of continuous mobility into our latter years. But for many people, we don't really get that. We do get challenged by mobility, and having a program such as this that gets people engaged and get out there,
Exactly.
get out there. Yeah, I think it's
You
huge.
know,
Yeah,
and after I made that video, I've gotten emails from some viewers that said, "Hey, I live in Nova Scotia and I found my local chapter, and now I'm a volunteer with Cycling Without Age." So if anybody's watching this now, look
yeah,
in your community. You might have a chapter where you can go and volunteer. They teach you how to ride these trishaw bikes, which is not hard. You only go like 5 miles an hour, and you can become a volunteer and help, take these people out on rides that will enhance their lives.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And what's also inspiring too about that is not only research and see if there's a chapter there, but one of the feedback uh, pieces of feedback that I got was somebody was so inspired, they're like, I want to start one. And so they did. They
Yeah.
actually went through the process and applied, and are able to bring the trishaw in. And now that community is benefiting from having a Cycling Without Age in their community, which is huge. Harry had one more thing he wanted to tell you, and I think it's important because it's a little bit of about what we were talking about earlier, of how profound these can have an impact. And yeah, here's what he had to say there. I think that's
Oh, so
great.
nice.
Yeah, I'm going to move this around so we can see it a little easier. There we go. Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I have a very small channel at this point in time. I do hope that it does grow a little bit more grander,
Yeah.
because I'd love it for it to be something that is sustainable financially for me into the future. Because right now I'm doing this full time. This, other than the occasional paid gig where somebody wants me to be a keynote speaker at a conference or something like that, this is it. So,
Mhm.
Patreon supporters, thank you.
Yeah.
That's huge. And same with Ryan. Patreon is a huge thing. Talk a little bit about that, because that is a big part of being a content creator. Yeah, ad revenue is great from YouTube, but you still need to have that as something additional. And one of the additional things that you have going on is Patreon.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say thank you to Harry. Harry, their comment brought a big smile to my face. It means the world to me to be able to connect with people and actually have an impact on them with my little old YouTube channel. I'm in little old Boulder, Colorado, and my videos can be seen all over the world. And that's what's incredible with YouTube and online video in general. It's amazing to have this voice, to have the ability to do this. Because 20 years ago, the only way to really create bike content would be to make a documentary and maybe sell it to a TV station, which will play it once or twice.
Right.
So we didn't have the reach that we do now, which is absolutely incredible. So Patreon, yes, Patreon, I love it. I always tell people who don't know what it is, it's kind of like supporting public news. If you watch NPR or listen to NPR or something, and at the end of the year, they always do a fundraiser and you want to keep NPR thriving and going and telling important stories, you donate some money to NPR. And now there's something called Patreon, and it's for creators of any type, podcasters, YouTubers, or just artists. And it's a way for viewers or listeners to help their favorite creators to keep on going. And so I've been on Patreon now, I think, for 3 or 4 years, and it's become a huge bonus to my life as far as being able to make a living doing this on YouTube, because without Patreon, it would not be possible. And so
Yeah.
there are kind people all over the world that give me $3 a month to $10 a month. And, they get early release videos with no ads and some other fun perks. But I love Patreon, not just for me personally, but because it's allowing creators of all types and all around the world to continue with their craft.
Yeah. And I like to reinforce and say to my supporters, yes, thank you very much for supporting my efforts out on Patreon. But we both this gives us an ability to be able to share our content early and ad free too. So it's kind of a nice little thing of a thank you that happens every single week, of being able to say, hey, we'll be able to put this content into a platform where you can see it, and you don't have to, you get a little something extra special. You get it
Yeah.
early and you get it ad free. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And people have direct contact with me. They can write me
Yeah.
messages. And so all my patrons, you can ask me anything you want and I will respond to you. I sometimes do live Zoom chats with my patrons. So it's a fun way to have just a little bit more of a unique and intimate access to your favorite creators.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, when we go back and look at the year that was for you and also for me, um, I can think of a few things that were pretty high on my list. The ability to make it out to Leipzig, Germany, for the Velocity Conference for the very first time, which is the big global gathering of bicycle advocates, and so that was huge for me. When you look back, other than what you had mentioned of making it down to Mexico and reconnecting with John and Mira, what are a couple of the huge highlights, from your year?
My number one adventure highlight was going to Sweden. And this trip was many years in the making. I was an exchange student in Sweden 25 years ago. I was at the very southern tip, and I always wanted to visit the northern part of Sweden, but I didn't make it happen when I was an exchange student. So this was always like a long-term dream that someday I would go up to the far north. Last summer, I had everything planned and ready to go. My bike was packed, and my tickets were canceled because Scandinavian Airlines went on strike and they canceled all the itineraries. It was crazy. So Sweden didn't happen last summer. And then this summer, it finally all worked out. And I flew up to the tippy top of Sweden to a town called Kiruna above the Arctic Circle. And I rode my bicycle the length of Sweden from top to bottom, 1,300 miles, 2,100 kilometers. And I had the time of my life. I love Sweden with all my heart. It was one of my very first international experiences. I lived with an amazing host family. I went to high school there. My first love was Swedish. Sweden opened my eyes to the world in so many different ways. And I also speak Swedish. So it was fun to be back in Sweden, speaking Swedish and meeting all these wonderful people as I made my way from north to south. And I was just this morning finishing editing the final, like, one big documentary piece about this entire adventure. And yeah, it's fun to see this footage of Sweden. And it wasn't without its hardships. There was a lot of rain. It was a very wet summer in Sweden. There were also tons of mosquitoes in Sweden. But that's what made the adventure a little richer. Adventures
Yeah.
are supposed to be a little bit hard. They're supposed to push your comfort zone. And it did that.
Yeah.
But as I always say, it's the people who make these adventures truly special. And there were a couple times where I thought I was in for a very uncomfortable wet night. And I met some Swedes who brought me into their homes and fed me meals, like these wonderful people right here.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's a good point. And, Renee has a comment here about, trail magic. And that's a huge part of it
Mhm.
is, the people that you meet along the way and the people that help us out along the way. Talk a little bit about what trail magic is.
Trail magic, and it's been happening not just to me. This is not something unique to me. It happens to everybody. I think when you put yourself out there and you're traveling, whether you're a hiker or you're cycling, and you run into somebody, I call them an angel, trail angels, and they are just at the right place at the right time to help you out. And maybe it's a place to sleep or a backyard to put your tent up in, or a meal, or maybe somebody's on the side of the road and they have some extra water that they want to give you in the desert. I have so many different examples of humans who have come out of nowhere to help me out. And they didn't even know when they woke up that morning that they were going to meet me. These are
Yeah.
people that are just do-gooders. And that's what I call trail magic, is when you meet wonderful people around the world who help you on your journey.
Yeah. And Francisco has a question for you. I know the answer to this because I also support your Patreon, and so I
Yeah.
know that you released that video today. So I'll let you answer Francisco's question.
Oh, Francisco, that's my buddy from Venezuela. Yes, that one will come out to patrons. It already came out, and it'll come out on Sunday morning to everybody else. And it's really good. I've made a few of these long edits where I take an entire series and smush it all together. And then what I do is I take out all the music and I leave
Hmm.
just natural sounds, and I take out a lot of the talking. So it's really
Right.
just nature and landscapes and beauty. And these types of videos, and I've gotten feedback about this, people love sitting on their trainers indoors in the winter when it's dark and cold and just
Right.
watching these long videos that they can ride their bike to and just kind of dream about how summer is going to be so beautiful whenever the sun comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing too, and I'm producing a few videos that are like that as well. I call them my ride along videos, where
Yeah.
I'm just kind of, I've got the GoPro facing forward most of the time, and 99.9% of the time it's just kind of facing forward instead of on my face,
Yeah.
and really just giving people an opportunity to feel what it's like. And I'll do a little bit of narration as I'm rolling down, but for the most part I want people to be able to feel what it's like to ride in Amsterdam, or Utrecht, or the one that I just did in Phoenix, going from the airport in Phoenix all the way to Cul-de-sac, which is a car-free neighborhood in Tempe. And so I wanted people to get a sense as to what it felt like to ride that 45 minutes to Tempe. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's kind of a neat feel.
It is, and it's another one of the beauties of YouTube. Whereas
Mhm.
before, if you made an hour and a half long video with essentially what we would call B-roll of bike riding
Right.
shots, that is not marketable as a documentary,
Right.
or you wouldn't go to a theater to watch something like this necessarily. But on YouTube, there's all these ASMR videos where people just watch these videos that just kind of help them relax, and it's natural sounds or it's very subtle music, and you just put it on and it's kind of in the background, and it just kind of helps you just chill out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, sometimes you find yourself in the middle of breaking news. Like
Yes.
this was national, international breaking news happening in Burning Man, and you felt compelled to put a video out, and it
Mhm.
basically says what really happened in Burning Man from your perspective because you lived through it. Talk a little bit about the fact that you didn't necessarily expect that you would be needing to produce something as breaking news.
Yeah, I usually go to Burning Man. I love it. It's an amazing experience. I love the art and the culture and the people, and the people from all over the world go to Burning Man. And I usually don't film anything other than the ultra marathon. So
Right.
I go there with the idea of, okay, I'm going to put my cameras down for once and just enjoy myself, because when I have cameras in my hand, it becomes work. No matter what it
Right.
is, if I'm filming, I am in work mode. So anyway, we're at Burning Man, and on the Friday of Burning Man, it started to rain, and I had never in my life even seen a drop of rain out in this desert. And this was my 8th time at Burning Man. And it started to rain, which was a little worrisome, but then it really started coming down and kept coming down and kept coming down. And it was wild. It changed the landscape of Burning Man to the point where nobody could really move around. You couldn't ride your bikes. None of the cars could move around. And I likened it to like a snow day where the world just kind of shuts down and everybody's just stuck where they are. And when I was there, I didn't have my phone on, so I didn't know what the world was saying about Burning Man, the outside world. We were doing just fine. And along the lines of trail magic, burners really go there with a service mindset. Everybody brings enough food and water and gear to live for a week out in the desert.
Right.
And when the rain came, everybody started making meals and offering people food and making sure everybody was okay. So it really showed, I think, the best side of Burning Man and the people there really looking out for one another. And so when I got out of Burning Man after 7 days, I saw all these crazy stories of, the news making, I don't even know where these stories were coming from, but Ebola viruses and chaos and all other things happening down there. And I was like, you know what? I need to make a video that talks about what really happened out there. And these were all done with just my cell phone again, because I don't bring my real cameras to Burning Man. So this is all cell phone footage. And I talked about what really happened and the beauty of Burning Man and how we overcame. And I wouldn't even call it a hard situation because it wasn't. It was just rainy and muddy. If it started flooding severely, then it would have been a bad situation. But everybody was A-okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I may have sent you a text just to check in to make sure you were okay. Yeah. But you guys weren't even getting texts necessarily, right?
I mean, some people were. Some people had their phones on and had service or had a camp with Wi-Fi. I like to go to Burning Man and shut all that off. And so I'm just there and I'm present and not distracted by the outside world. It's my time to just turn off. So I didn't get any of that, but I really appreciate you checking in on me. I do remember that when I finally got service after I left Burning Man, there was a nice message from you making sure I was okay.
Yeah. And this is what you had mentioned earlier, is that it is your annual tradition to film the 50-kilometer run there, the ultra marathon there. This was your very first ultra marathon ever that you ever did years ago, correct?
Mm-hmm. So when I first went to Burning Man in 2013, I started Googling to see if there were any running groups at Burning Man, just so I could get some exercise while I was out there for 7 days. And I came upon this camp called Pink Lightning, and their gift to the Burning Man community is the ultra marathon. And to back up a little bit, people go to Burning Man with the idea that you're bringing a gift to the community, and that can be whatever you want that to be. You could hand out little necklaces, or you could set up a stand and give away tea or massages, but they give away this race, and it has official numbers and chip timing and aid stations. It's like a real deal race. And there were over 300 people in the race this year. And so back in 2013, this was my first ultra marathon. I've been a runner all my life. I had run marathons, but I'd never gone further than a marathon. And this race really opened up my eyes to the world of ultra runners and how supportive and kind they are, and how it's not really about competition and going fast. It's about experience. And this race really is quite an experience.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, and you have a long history with running. Since you do live in Boulder, one of the most famous races in, I think, all of North America is right there in Boulder, and that is the Boulder. How many times have you run the Boulder?
I've lost count on the Boulder, but it's at least 30 times. I started when I was 6 years old in first grade, and I've done it pretty much every year except for the 2 years when I lived in Honduras as a Peace Corps volunteer.
Yeah.
So this year, here's some great footage from my favorite race. There's about 50,000 people who run the Boulder. And Boulder's not that big of a city. It's a 100,000 person city. So 50,000 people running on the streets of Boulder is a big deal. And it has become my favorite day of the year. I often say that this is my Christmas day. And there's a picture of me when I was a little dude, my very first Boulder. And I love it. I love it because I love Boulder. I love the community. I love people who come out and cheer people on. I love the bands and the music along the way, and the kids and the belly dancers. And it's just it's one of the best days in our city for the entire year. And there's Frank Shorter. He is one of the co-founders of the race. Of course, Frank Shorter is one of the grandfathers of American distance runner, the first American male to win a gold medal in the marathon way back in
Yeah,
the day. And
way
so I
back in
do
the
not
day.
miss the Boulder. It is super fun. I've been a runner. I'm still a runner, so I take it pretty seriously. I train for it, and I try to go as fast as I can. And then once I do one lap of the Boulder, which is a 10K, 6.2 miles, then I come back and I do it again, and I have all the fun, and I do all the slip and slides.
Yeah, yeah. And Harry has a question here for you. He wants to know about your drones.
How many drones do you own, and how many have you lost? Well, right now I only have 2 drones, but I've lost a lot more than 2. Let's just say that. Well, I haven't lost all that many. I've crashed a lot, and I get them back and I send them in.
Right.
And if you're out there listening and you want to buy a DJI drone, always buy the insurance,
Okay.
because
Right.
you will smash it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
insurance helps you replace them. It's not a free replacement, but it's definitely cheaper. So I lost one in Moab for sure, off the side of a cliff. It blew away. And I think that might be the only true drone that could not retrieve, but I've smashed plenty of them. And
Yeah.
when I'm using my drone, a lot of times I'm on my bicycle, I'm pedaling as I'm filming, which is a tough thing to do, but I think it creates a lot of very beautiful footage. And so I push the limits with my drone more than the average person. And because of that, there are some consequences, but it's worth it. I'm gonna keep on pedaling and droning. You can't
Yeah.
stop me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Hey guys, keep the questions rolling.
Question.
We've got Ryan for a little bit more time. We may have, keeping our fingers crossed, we may have a surprise guest pop in as well.
Ooh.
But I want to talk a little bit about some of my favorite series of videos that you produce each year. And top of the list is the one that you just finished producing, and that's the series on Ragbri. Talk a little bit about the Ragbri experience. And wait a minute, who are all these people in pink shirts?
I know. We kind of made things a little bit more official this year. So these are all my teammates, Team Duzer. We made these really fun hot pink shirts and sold them, raising money for what's called the Dream Team. It's in Iowa. And what they do is they get young people out on bikes and train them for Ragbri, and they give them a bicycle. And so we're raising money for the Dream Team. And I've been doing Ragbri for 6 years. For people who don't know what Ragbri is, it is the longest running and largest bicycle touring event in the world. And it happens in the state of Iowa, the final week of July. This was the 50th year of Ragbri, so there were tens of thousands of people, which was very fun. And I love it because the people. It really highlights, I think, the best of small town America. It's very charming and fun and old timey. There's lots of pie. You'll get into a town and they'll have signs up for the church spaghetti dinner, and everybody goes to the basement of the church to have a big spaghetti dinner. And there are always fundraisers for the churches or the local Boy Scouts or brownies or whatever it is. And it's just fun and charming and joyful. And it's not a race. It doesn't matter how fast you go. It doesn't matter what kind of bike you have. It's all about just, congregating with thousands and thousands of bike loving people.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a special experience it is. And Renee is just like, yep, I Team Duzer, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Renee is definitely on Team Duzer for sure.
Now, there's something special that's going to happen next year with Team Duzer. Explain that.
So this year we had Team Duzer, but it was a bit loosey-goosey. We sold the shirts, but we didn't have like an actual meeting point every day. It was just people would buy them and they would do their things, and maybe we would see them in their pink shirts. This year, we're teaming up with a charter called the Out of Staters. And charters work within Ragbri to create a smaller community within the big community of Ragbri. And so we're all going to camp together every single night, and ride together as much as we can at Ragbri. You know, it's hard because you get lost in a sea of tens of thousands of people, and we're going to eat our meals together and have tons of fun. So that's what we're going to do this year, is hopefully make Team Duzer a bit more cohesive. We'll see how it works. This is an experiment, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to have a very good time.
Can they find information on your website or on your channel about?
Yeah, the
Or is it?
information is all. It's in the description of these videos, the Ragbri videos
Okay.
themselves. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's where people
Okay.
can go to get the information.
Fantastic. So for
Yeah.
folks who are wondering, yes, head on over to the channel. I'm going to assume that everybody is already a subscriber to your channel, but if not, I'm putting that link in the comments right now. Click on that link and
Thank you.
go subscribe, and then also pop on in, and you can drill down to the link so that you can sign up for Ragbri and sign up with that tour company so that you can do that. I would love to do it. I just don't know if I'm going to be back because it's going to
Oh,
be in the summer, right? It's in
yeah.
July.
It's always the
Yeah.
last week of July.
Yeah. Hopefully, if I can raise the money, I want to head back to Velocity, which is in Ghent in Belgium this coming year, which is in June. And once I get over to Europe, I want to try to stay there as long as possible and travel
Mhm.
to many countries, including maybe Sweden,
Yeah.
because I'm long overdue. It's been years since I've been in Malmo. I was there in 2015, and I need to get back and do some more exploring. So we do have a couple of other really cool comments here. Let me pull this one up here real quick. Someone's saying, Ryan, do a bike packing trip with a Brompton, please. Oh, yeah, you can borrow my Brompton.
I maybe I'll do that. Actually,
Yeah.
Priority Bicycles, the company that I work with, just released a folding bike. So
Well,
maybe I should do that. That would be cool. I'm
yeah,
all about trying different bike adventures on different types of bicycles. Way back in
yep.
2009, I rode a 3-speed cruiser bike across the country.
Oh,
And the
that's
point
right. You
of that
did.
ride was to show people that you don't need to have the most expensive gear to do something extraordinary. And I had this 3
Right.
speed bike. I pulled a trailer with all my gear, and I went from Oceanside, California, near San Diego, all the way to Washington, D.C. So I think a Brompton would be another example of a bike that people wouldn't initially think, oh, let's go on a crazy adventure for. This is, Bromptons are essentially commuters, right? And
Yeah.
take it a little bit further.
It's funny. The whole reason why Laura and I both got Bromptons dates back to a content creator, Russ Roca, that he and his partner Laura, they toured in New Zealand and did, basically a transit and Brompton tour. And we're like, heck, let's get those. And so we did. And we've been rocking those now for over a decade. And yeah, the Brompton, my trusty Brompton, goes with me anywhere I go. When I'm in Boulder and I come and visit you at your house, I'm always riding my Brompton, to your
Yeah.
place. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
fan of all bikes, of any bikes.
yeah,
There's some YouTube channels and people that really focus on the gear side of things and the lightest weight stuff. And I've never really cared about any of that. I think any bike, if it works, it will do the job for you.
yeah, yeah. Well, I will clear this with Laura, but I'm sure she would lend you her Brompton, and you and
Okay.
I could do a Brompton bike packing trip
There we
adventure
go.
together.
Nice. I like it.
Yes. And we've been loosely saying, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we ever did a trip like that together? You usually do solo trips, but every once in a while you'll meet up
Yeah.
with like John and Mira and a few other folks, and sometimes you end up meeting people along the way and then tagging
Mhm.
along for a little while,
Yep.
and that's all good fun. And you and I have had the opportunity to be in the same place at the same time and produce content
Mhm.
together and separately. For instance, at Places for Bikes conferences, we've done that, as well as we both were able to attend the wonderful events up in Montreal back in
Yeah.
2018, which was a lot of fun. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's good stuff. Well, hey, we do have a few other questions popping up here. So Matt Rhodes has a question for you, I believe. Let's see. Oh no, Francisco has a question for you. Let's pull this one up real quick.
All right. Any
Yeah.
advice for a first timer on long distance rides like the GDMBR or Colorado Trail? No camping or bike packing experience here, just long rides. I always tell people to start small. I mean, the GDMBR is a 2,700-mile ride, and that's a big one to do for your very first bike packing trip. You're going to want to start with something small, maybe just a weekend where you just get your gear together. You learn how to pack it all onto your bike, which takes a lot of patience sometimes to figure out how to get the weight situated correctly, where you're going to put your food, where you're going to put your water. So get that all dialed in and then ride your bike and feel what it's like to ride a very heavy bike. If you're used to riding a road bike, 100 miles a day, it's a very different experience than riding a 70-pound bike packing bike when you're all loaded down. So just get a feel for what it's like. So you don't need to go too far, and go camping too, because a lot of people don't camp all that often, and you need to get used to it. It's a little bit different. You might not be as comfortable. So go for a weekend trip, try out all your gear, get your legs ready for pulling a big heavy bike, and, take your tent out a few times and figure out how to pack it up and all that good stuff. So I say start small. That's always what I tell people. But it can be a fast trajectory from small to big. So if you go out and you have the best time ever on your weekend ride and you want to do something bigger like the GDMBR, just go for it. You will learn how to do it as you go. It's not like I've done it so many times, I know exactly how to do it. I know what works for me, but you're different, and what works for you might be different than me. And the main thing is you just want to be comfortable. You don't want to be so miserable that it's not fun anymore. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that they pack too much, or their bikes are too heavy, and it's just impossible to get your bike up a mountain, and it just takes away from the fun. But remember, the whole goal of bike packing is really to have fun, and then to connect with nature and connect with yourself and experience the beauty of trail magic.
Yeah. Yeah. And Matt Rhodes did have a comment for you related to the Brompton, and here's what he said.
Right on. I did the Gap and C&O this summer on my Brompton, fully loaded. Met Duzer at a Thursday cruiser ride on the same bike. I remember meeting you, buddy. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love meeting people on Thursday nights in Boulder. When people come to visit Boulder, I always say the best way to find me is on Thursday nights on the cruiser ride. And this is a cruiser ride. It's a casual social joy ride that we've been doing for over 20 years now in the city of Boulder. Every Thursday night, even last night, December 21st, we were out and about. We were all bundled up.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And you frequently, and so same with me. I've been on the cruiser ride many times over the years, and I like to produce little snippets, short form content, and produce it. You do the same, but you usually don't do a big production on your main YouTube channel, but you do put stuff out on your Instagram, correct?
Yep, a lot of Instagram stuff. I have a handful of videos about the Thursday cruiser ride on
Okay,
my channel, but kind of
the
like
main
what I was
channel.
saying earlier with Burning Man, if I have my cameras and my drone and all my stuff, then
Yeah,
I'm working. And the
yeah,
cruiser ride for me is fun time.
yeah. And I can document that, or I can vouch for that, because I've documented the fact that, when I'm there, I can't help myself. I'm like pulling out my iPhone and shooting
Yeah.
stuff, and it's good fun. For Matt, you seem to be a Brompton fan. I did have the honor and opportunity to actually interview the CEO of Brompton. So be sure to check that out. That's a
Mhm.
really fun video. I was very, very pleased and honored to have that opportunity to do that. So Matt, please pop on over, to my channel and look for that particular video, because
Mhm.
I was just blown away how nice he was,
Yeah.
promoting. Really, what we ended up talking about was not about the bikes. It was really about the freedom that a bike brings. And you talk about that as well, is that it's not about the bike. It's not about the
Mhm.
brand. It's about the
Mhm.
joy and the freedom that comes along with it.
Yeah, I mean, you think back to your best childhood memories, and a lot of them probably include riding a bike for the very first time, and you get the training wheels taken off by your dad, and you feel that sense of freedom. And all of a sudden, you can travel beyond the confines of your small neighborhood, because when you're young, your parents have to take you everywhere. You're holding their hand, they're guiding you. But once you have a bicycle and you're on your own, the world is all yours. And that's when I really started to learn about the beauty of bike travel, was when I was a young guy, and I would ride my bike all over Boulder and some of the foothill trails and go out into the mountains. And I loved the feeling of freedom and moving my body with just my legs, and, having a snack or a picnic way out, in the woods, in a field of flowers, and how fun and how simple it was. You don't need video games and all that other stuff. I mean, it's fun to do that. I'm not hating on video games and movies, but I think the good stuff in life happens when you put yourself out there a bit.
Yeah, yeah. Harry has a question here for you. He's wondering how John and Mira are doing. It's been a while since he'd seen them.
Well, Harry, I just got off the phone with John right before this conversation. He is in Mexico right now with Mira. He's going to be in Mexico for maybe another month or two, and then he's going to head into Central America and continue his journey south to the tippy tip of South America. And then he's going to continue on his world adventure by bicycle for the next 5 or so years. So I will try my best to meet them at different spots around the world. The last few years, I've met them in different places in Mexico. And even this summer, he was at my house in Boulder, which was very cool.
Yeah, which is kind of that was special. That was a little bit unusual, but it was there because he and Mira were doing a special event.
Yeah, so he and Mira raced the Tour Divide this year from Canada to Mexico as the very first dog packing duo. And they did it in 28 days, which is right about 100 miles a day. And John's bike, and I was talking about my bike being heavy at 70 pounds. His is well over 100 pounds because his bike is extended to hold a basket that holds Mira, who is 40 pounds alone, plus all his own food and water, plus all her food and water. So John is a beast.
Yeah, yeah. I've got your landing page here for the YouTube channel up as we start to narrow in on the close of our wonderful holiday celebration. And again, thank you so much for doing this each year, Ryan. But what I want to ask you is, what's up for 2024?
Dun, 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 dun. Well, you know what? Speaking of the Tour Divide, my goal this summer is to also race the Tour Divide.
Ah.
I've ridden the route, I've ridden the GDMBR, and I loved touring it, but I want to challenge myself and see what it's like to race it. I don't think I will drive myself into the dirt like a lot of the people who race this race and don't sleep and go a little nuts, but I want to push myself a little bit. So that's a big one that I'm going to do this year. I'm going to go to Baja on January 1st. I love Baja, and I'm going to finish up a piece of the Baja Divide that I haven't done. So that's first.
Well, you got some history with Baja. Sometimes Baja is kicking your butt.
Yeah, Baja kicks everybody's butt, and sometimes things don't go the way you have them planned, and that's what makes it beautiful. You can always leave an adventure and come back another day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about that, because when you actually are doing something with some intention of doing your best, like, because you like you said with Boulder, it's like you do kind of want to do your best, and if you're in shape, you try to push it and all that. When you're running like the 100-miler, when you run Leadville or something like that, you're pushing. But even when you're pushing, and even when you're doing that, which is hard enough, you still are documenting it, right?
Mm-hmm. So that is a very tricky thing to do when you're pushing your body to the absolute limit, but also trying to capture those moments. And there are plenty of times where I'm on a bike tour and I've already ridden, let's say, 80 miles, and it's toward the end of the day. And the last thing I want to do is stop, get off my bike, put my camera on a tripod, go set it up, and then ride in front of the tripod. But I know if I don't get those shots, the videos won't be very dynamic. And I also, when I'm going through something really hard, I try to explain that to my camera, which is my audience. Because if you don't film the hard parts, I think the adventures aren't as genuine and as real. Then you're just showing off all the best of the best. And that's not how adventures are. So the tough times, the times where I am, suffering, those are the moments that I try to really capture, because those are the moments that speak to the audience. Everybody can relate with going through hard times, whether you're just in life or an adventure. And I think it's important to show how you overcome those tough moments, even if it's the last thing you want to do is take out a camera when you're exhausted or you're in a rainstorm or a hailstorm or being chased by thousands of mosquitoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Any final thoughts? Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave everybody with?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. This is always so much fun and it's an honor. And this has become such a professional broadcast. I love how you bring in all the videos. I feel like I'm back on TV, man. This is very cool. So, all of my people, go subscribe to Active Towns. John highlights all the good stuff in the world. And here, you could probably even say it better. You pitch yourself.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate everybody tuning in here today for this. Again, this is a nice, a fun annual tradition. It gives us an opportunity to kind of reflect a little bit in a little bit of a different setting. We usually do have the opportunity to see each other in person at some point in time. Recently, it's been in Boulder, but and you did me a huge solid earlier this summer of letting me borrow your downstairs to record a couple of sessions, which was a huge help. Thank you so much for doing that, and I really appreciate our friendship and the fact that you have been able to mentor me in this whole video production world and YouTube world. Thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much once again for being on the Active Towns Duzer holiday celebration.
Yay. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in, and stay tuned for more adventures next year. 2024 is going to be a big one.
It is. It's going to be awesome. Hey, again, thank you all so much. More to come. And yeah, in 2024, we'll catch you all then. Yay.